I'm Aaron Kalin with DNSimple for a little over 3 years now at this point. So I do, at DNSimple, I do most of the day-to-day operations stuff. So my pretty much day-to-day world is chef, and has been for, I think, the last 5, almost 6 years. This is my 3rd ChefConf now, and I've pretty much lost count of all the community summits that I've been to. I'm somewhat of a fixture in the chef community in that sense. And then I guess Anthony.
Yeah. So I founded DNSimple, as was already said. I've been developing for a long time in lots of different languages. Cut my teeth on Perl and Java. Moved up and did Ruby, Erlang, Elixir, Go. Do all kinds of different things. I usually spend a lot of time running the business, but I also still get to write some code. And from time to time, I even get to work a little bit on the chef stuff. And in fact, this is my first ChefConf, and I've also been to one of the chef summits, the one in London.
So what we're going to be talking about today is the Chef Partner Cookbook program. So if you don't know what that is, this is what we're going to be diving into. It'll be the background of sort of each of our sides of the story. So Anthony's going to start off on the business side of like what business decisions went into becoming part of this program, because we'll go to the story about how we got pulled into it too, but I'll be going over the technical side to kind of give you like the details of how we pulled up our already deployed and published cookbook to the supermarket up to the standards that the chef basically guides you through for becoming a Chef Partner Cookbook. So click over to the next thing. Can I get there? Come on. There we go. We're part of DNSimple. We're a DNS and we're domain automation management company. So like if you want to buy a domain and attach it to a service on the internet, you need DNS to do so. It's the glue that holds the internet together, as many of you probably already know. We also automate SSL certificates, which are becoming more and more of a pain point these days for folks. We make that incredibly easy to not just purchase, but also help you as much as we can in getting the installation and all that stuff underway. We also, let's see, that's pretty much like the big
Yeah, it's most of it. Domain registration, DNS, and SSL certificates.
And again, like what we'll be talking about today is the Chef Cookbook that we've had out there for a little while, and also the sort of rewrite that's happened recently. So we've updated it to be Chef 12 and 13 compatible. It pretty much will not work on 11 anymore, sorry. The community has moved on, and it's time for you to come up with it too. So if you need help with that, you can pay me for some questions. I'll give you some resources later after the talk. A really cool thing that we've published is how DNS works. You can go pull this up, and if any of you have kids out there, show them this comic, and they can help you debug your router, because it's always DNS. That's the problem, right? Whenever your router goes down and you can't watch Netflix. So this is actually a really cute comic. You can show it to your kids, but you can also learn some from it if you have some folks that aren't super technical. This actually explains DNS as a whole very well, like from the browser, how a query works, how it actually gets the response back, and that whole chain that goes through. And it's in a very fun little comic. We even have like a miniature version of it at our booth if you check us out later in the hall right over there. So, but let's see here.
You want me to give the story, or you want to give the story?
Go ahead. But I like the transition. This is the story of how we became a member of the Chef Partner Cookbook program. So I guess, do you want me to start with the timeline?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so timeline-wise, I got messaged on the chef community Slack from JJ, who some of you might know. He does a lot of the partnership stuff with Chef. Super cool guy. If you haven't met him, he also goes by J Dizzle, or as he will tonight, Admiral J Dizzle, because we'll be totally doing some Artemis tonight. He pinged me on Slack to talk about a new program at Chef called the Chef Partner Cookbook program. I was like, what is that? And he said, well, it's basically, in a nutshell, it was a set of cookbooks that Chef would sort of bless in the Chef supermarket as kind of this is up to even Chef standards for reusable, easy to follow, easy to work with cookbooks that support multiple platforms. Because even at the time, there's a lot of cookbooks on the supermarket, but there's also a lot of cookbooks you probably, not saying you don't want to use them necessarily, definitely some that could be potentially dangerous to your stack, just because someone wrote it, it worked for them, so they publish it, and they think, okay, by sharing it, it's all good and all that, but it could be that you have a platform that has a quirk that this cookbook just does not account for. When you publish something out there in open source, you end up taking on a whole lot more work than you were originally bargaining for. It's great to share it, but it doesn't always work for everyone, and in fact, some cookbooks could be potentially harmful for your stack. So this was kind of a way for Chef to go have a sort of standards that you must follow and Chef themselves will sort of say like, hey, as a user of Chef or like a large company that wants to look at Chef, these are a set of cookbooks that we agree are really good for you to use, and we will even try to support them as much as we can as a company because we know that they follow the standards, and therefore we can understand and reason about them with you as a customer. And that led to, I think it's around April 2016. That's when we started the email chain because I told them to go ahead and email me and Anthony because joining this program also meant we had to sign some legal documents because we would be entering into sort of a partnership with Chef. So there would be some cross-promotional agreements and all that stuff.
And I'll go into that a little bit more in my
yeah,
section
like
here
there'll be some more details about that from Anthony's side. And we talked with a couple of other people at Chef about this to just get everything together because it was a discussion between JJ and Arnie, I think.
Yep.
To get all the requirements. There was actually a PDF document he gave me with a sort of presentation about the whole program. I think it was in a Starbucks, ironically, at the time when I was doing the call with them. And then, he was giving me all the instructions I needed, and even in that presentation of like what I needed to do in terms of updating our cookbook, which was already in a pretty decent spot as it was, but even I knew that there were some problems with it, and we would need to go and address those before we got in there. And in order to meet even the deadline for here, like we were we were done by June to get it up into the program. So from April when we first started talking, by June of 2016, we were basically in the program at that point. So we've been in it for close to a year now. Wow.
Yep.
Time flies.
Yep.
When you're having a lot of fun with them. So the end result of all this, if you want to go check out the cookbook on the supermarket as it stands today, and I'll be pointing out like what actually denotes it as a partner cookbook later. But I'm going to go ahead and let Anthony go over the fun business stuff.
Right. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit is why you might, from a business standpoint, want to actually get into the program. So when we look at anything inside of DNSimple, we look at not only what is the technical value for it, but also what is the business value for it. So why might it be good for business? I'm going to go through a few different things here. The first is the marketing value. So whether you have a company large or small, we know that Chef puts a lot into their marketing efforts. So they get out there and they promote their partners a lot. They promote high quality cookbooks, and this is part of that. So as somebody who's going to go in and have a partner cookbook, essentially they're going to come to you and they're going to say, this is something that we can co-market with you. So that's one of the first things. And for small companies, this is hugely valuable. But I think it's good even for larger companies. It shows that you're ahead of the game when it comes to your operations side of things, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is visibility. So cookbooks that are partner cookbooks actually get a special badge. Again, Aaron will show you a little bit more what that looks like actually in the supermarket later, but you get a badge. And there's a search option that can be used to look specifically for partner cookbooks. So you have a little bit higher visibility. Now imagine if we can grow this program even further, that visibility will become more and more important because you'll be able to say these partner cookbooks are ones that we can trust and they're high quality. The next value from the business side is the ability to co-market. So on the one side you have just the marketing aspects of Chef, but as part of being part of this program, you actually enter an agreement where we can blog and we can write about DNSimple and Chef together. And that actually brings value to what we can do from our end because it associates us with, in our case, with a company that's doing some pretty innovative things in the operations world. Chef will also share those blog posts to the Chef community, which has additional value. Again, they're having a blessed marketing program with you that's a joint marketing program. Another value is essentially community. By improving the quality of cookbooks in general inside of the supermarket, we are helping the community as a whole. As you saw this morning, if you were in the keynote, the Chef community now is quite large. All right, those people depend, as all of you do, on good cookbooks that aren't going to come in and be difficult to run, difficult to integrate into their existing cookbook infrastructure. They need stuff that's going to work straight out of the gate, and usually on multiple platforms. So part of this program is designed to help the community as a whole. For me, as a business owner who depends on that, I'm part of that community as well. So that's the other piece. The improved quality means that I can depend better and I can know that my operators who are going to be working with these cookbooks on a daily basis are going to spend less time trying to fix bugs in other people's cookbooks. So improved quality is a huge benefit to us. Again, speaking of the keynote this morning, if speed to market matters, then quality of those core components that you use in your cookbooks matters hugely. because what you don't want to be doing is going down some rat hole on somebody else's cookbook. So high quality cookbooks means faster time to market for us and faster time to market for each of you. In general, being part of this program actually helped strengthen our relationship with Chef as well. So it got me in touch with people in the Chef community. It actually got me encouraged to go to the Chef Summit in London with Aaron, knowing even the fact that I'm outside of the community in terms of I'm not writing cookbooks on a day-to-day basis. I still found it very valuable to start to meet people inside of Chef who are at the higher levels. And that's something that you can take advantage of as well. You start to meet good people who can build strong connections inside the Chef community, and will hopefully lead you to other business aspects as well. So improving different things about your business when you take advantage of those connections. All right, so those are some of the business values. Naturally, there are a few challenges that go along with it as well. The good news is that they're not very many. That's one of the reasons why it was an easy decision for us. So one of the challenges is that there is potentially an investment of time, especially if your cookbooks aren't up to snuff, basically, as far as like the quality of them. You're going to have to spend some time bringing the quality up. So as a business owner, I have to decide to invest that time. Now the good news is that it doesn't require me to invest any money in the actual program. The program is free to join, but it does require me to dedicate some engineer time over to that. If you have high quality cookbooks that you maintain in the first place, that's less of an issue for you. But if you have some cookbooks that you want to have part of the program and maybe they just got thrown together, you are going to spend some engineering time cleaning them up. The other thing, of course, is it's not just the first creation of it, it's the ongoing maintenance of it. So as those cookbooks grow over time and evolve, you're going to have to make sure that they stick with the standards. And the standards themselves may change as well over time to add additional quality requirements. I can seriously imagine a time in the not too distant future where InSpec might be part of the cookbook process for partner cookbooks. If that happens, then you're going to be expected to handle that as part of your partner cookbook agreement. So you have to consider also the maintaining quality and the ongoing maintenance of that. To me, those are really the only two drawbacks. Otherwise, it's all upside, right? It's pretty straightforward. Now, as far as the non-technical requirements, this is also very, very simple, which is awesome. We had one agreement, essentially, that we had to sign, which was the Chef Partner co-marketing agreement. Beyond that, there's really nothing else. So from the business side, there's really low friction to getting your business groups to go in and do this, because it's not like they have to enter into NDAs or other legal agreements that might be complex. In this case, it's really straightforward. At least it was at the time that we signed up. I'm assuming it's still the same way now. Anyway, so it was really, really simple. And then that's pretty much it. From the business side, like I said, it's kind of a win-win, right? I mean, there's not a high barrier to entry. It's low cost generally. So convincing, if you're a tech side person and you want to convince the business side, you can basically use these arguments and say, look, it's almost all upside for you. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Aaron, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the technical requirements.
All right, so welcome to the nerdy deep end. So here, this is going to be like a bullet point overview of just summary of the presentation that was given to me, and it's actually been updated here and there. So I actually had to update my slide from the original requirements. So one of the first things right out of the gate, and it's probably a duh for some of you who've been in Chef a little bit, but testing with Chef Spec and InSpec are pretty much a requirement. InSpec is there to stay. Is I think back when we first started doing this, server spec, InSpec was kind of at the border, but at this point, InSpec is pretty much all there all the time. So if you don't have InSpec tests there, you will need them. You need to have a OSI or open source initiative compatible license with a license file. In fact, the newer Chef DK, I believe, now ships with a like a license chooser thing. Food Critic will now actually fail a build because there's actually like a supermarket section now in the different things that it can check against your cookbook. And if it fails against a non-OSI license, or if it can't figure out one that you've chosen, then they actually kick you to a site where they actually have a huge list of them. So for the business side, you may need to involve them. If you haven't licensed your cookbook, you definitely should. We chose Apache 2.0, I think, back in the day because that's pretty much what the majority of the Chef community uses, what Chef prefers. They even say this in the documentation for merging your cookbook over to it. But it may be that your company has different sort of requirements for that. You may even choose MIT. That's okay. Just you may want to actually consult the business side or even a legal team if you have one about licensing if you don't have one yet. Contributing.md documents. So how are people going to contribute to your project? Testing MD document. Compliance with cook style. This is voluntary, and I'll get into a little bit of detail with that and the fun we had with that one. Compliance with the supermarket linting tools, which is Food Critic, et cetera. I don't know if you all know about the supermarket standards. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit. Also platform support, making sure you support more than one platform. And I think initially ours is just Ubuntu only, which doesn't really work with everyone else because there are RHEL folks, there's Windows folks. I remember when I first went to my first summit, this is I think 4 or 5 years ago now, the Windows track used to be people crying in a corner because Windows support was just non-existent in Chef. And from where it is now, you have Microsoft being a partner. So like where it's moved in the last 5 years has been ridiculously impressive. So I've also had to think about this. You get a Jenkins badge from Chef. There's actually a Jenkins build farm that runs on Azure currently that will actually run and test your cookbook, and it will actually tear it down nightly and rerun it again. So in case you have any dependencies in your cookbook, if those change from underneath you and you don't have any pins or anything like that, your build will fail, in which case now you need to go back and update your cookbook because all of your requirements can change over time. Chef in general is a moving target, so that's something you do need to be aware of and keep up with. Some other qualifiers that aren't really like hard and fast, they prefer that you have semantic versioning. This helps with tools like Bookshelf. It prefers to have that so it can actually reason about version numbers. Windows support and testing, which I was just talking about, that's becoming a bigger thing in the Chef community. They really want to make Windows environments more inclusive overall in the Chef community. So having your cookbook work on Windows is definitely a huge preference. It's not a hard qualifier as far as I know, but it's definitely preferred if you can do that. Organized and documented attributes. If you have any of those in your cookbook, I think we were able to purge all of them by moving to the new resource model, which is kind of a bonus. So you really just want to make sure if you expose a resource and all that stuff that you document it incredibly well. And especially like this is kind of a duh for Chef, IDEPINIT recipes. So if I run it over and over and over again, I should still get the same results. If it starts getting wonky on you, then there's probably some code paths that you need to maybe test with Chef spec, et cetera. So that's like the solid bullet points. I'm not going to keep hammering you with bullet points, sorry. So linting tools. This was fun for us to go through because Food Critic used to be a lot more loose and fast with doing things. Like if you haven't used Food Critic before, it's basically just a static analyzer tool. It will go through and look at your cookbook, and using a set of criteria, it will throw a set of warnings based on different things it knows that can cause cookbooks to fail or not work in certain environments. Like I know the newer ones that just got added, if you don't have a minimum Chef version added in your metadata, it will fail. Or if you don't have your platform specified, it will fail. No version number, certain data in your metadata information, stuff like that. And you can turn them off, on and off, depending on what sort of circumstances you have. If you're not publishing to the supermarket, then you can turn off all the supermarket stuff with tags if you want to. It's in the documentation. But with this, you pretty much have to go with qualifying under the typical setup of Food Critic. So if you can't pass that, then you have to have a pretty darn good reason, and you actually have to comment in it, because you can actually turn off the rules in Food Critic. You have to comment in there and have a fairly good reason why you're not complying with a particular rule. And it could just be that, because Food Critic for a little while, was way back here in terms of cookbook standards, but the community was already moving up, and luckily Chef was able to pull Food Critic up to that somewhat recently, so there's some much better practices in there. Cook style that I warned about before uses a tool called Rubocop. I don't know if any of you have used it before, but it's basically another linting tool for Ruby that goes through and does style checks inside of your code. And the cook style is sort of Chef's agreed upon standard of this. And the reason I give some huge caveats with this one is because this particular thing might rock your world. Because you may have an internal standard about how you write your Ruby, and you may already be using Rubocop. If you don't, you should definitely consider using the tool because it helps you write more consistent code. Like one of the things that this will definitely surprise you on is they are hard and fast about single quotes versus double quotes. Double quotes are only if you're going to do interpolation in Ruby, and they prefer single quotes, so it will fail. You can, again, turn those off. There's a YAML file that you can put into your project that will let you skip by some of these things, so you can explicitly turn them off. According to the program, like you don't have to comply with everything that's here, But I think as an operations team, we decided it's a decent practice to do that. Though what's really funny is it actually is in direct disagreement with how they do the DNSimple app, which is also written in Ruby. They have entirely different rules than we do. But we just use cook style, so it's consistent across all of our operations deploys. So as long as you can comply with this, you're good to go. So in terms of the documentation front, the newer things that just got added are the contributing.md. Adding documentation was helpful for us in general, just because it makes you sit down and think about how is someone going to help you with this project, because it's open source. You're putting it on the supermarket, you have hopefully like a GitHub repo behind it and all that stuff. You want some people to help you, especially because you're generally going to be the only one initially using this, and so you're the best use case. You know what all the sort of pitfalls are. But someone comes along and maybe uses it on Windows or something like that, and your resource doesn't quite work as it is. So how are they going to be able to tell you that and potentially help you? Maybe they know enough how to fix the problem and they want to contribute to your project. So you really have to think about how people contribute back, and then also you have to really think about how those contributions come in. Your company may want to enforce something like a contributor license agreement, or like the DSO is now with Chef. I'm old enough with Chef that I signed one of those CLAs. I didn't have to fax it in back then; you had to, and I think I did. I had to mail mine back or something like that. I did physically sign a document, send it back to Chef. Now you just have to sign a commit. That's super nice now. And like I mentioned before, we chose Apache 2 for the contributing side of things. And speaking of contributing, how are they going to test your code? So how are they going to verify that the changes that they're going to submit to you work? Or especially if you have something like a CI pipeline, how are you going to describe that so they know that that's there? And if it fails, you can point them to it and say, here, the build has failed. You need to go check out these builds. We use Travis CI and all that, so we actually moved out the testing section that used to be at the bottom of our README at the time into a testing document. And actually now the supermarket will actually fail the quality checks on your cookbooks if you do not have these documents now as of today. So if you submit a cookbook right now to the supermarket and you don't have these files, it will actually fail in the cookbook quality metrics. And I spoke before about the license. You need to make sure a license file is there. I think we had one, but it wasn't exactly filled out. You need to make sure it also has the proper copyright and all that stuff too, and the proper people are attributed to it. But going back to the test coverage document, this is a fun thing to do. We set up Travis CI because, truth be told, we run Travis CI's DNS, and we love all the operations team and all the folks over there. We know the founders very well. It's also a very good service in general. A lot of the public chef cookbooks are run on Travis CI. And we had to do a little bit of munging to make sure it would all work, especially publicly. You have to think a lot about, we had to do some credential hiding and all that stuff. We didn't want to give away our public API keys. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. And then the other thing that was an addition that kind of came in after we joined the program, because I think this was actually at ChefConf last year on the hack day, is when I was told about the Jenkins coverage badge, because JJ, I think, was literally building it during the hack day. So that I had to actually work pretty closely with him to make sure that he could get the builds working on, I think, Azure Cloud is what he was using at the time. I think he still is using now. So I had to actually help him, sit down and pair with him on basically implementing our cookbook in a test. So could he actually run that testing.md document? And if he couldn't follow it, then that's a failure on us, not making it easy enough to follow for them to be able to either download it or run it on their own CI environment. Because especially if people are going to consume your cookbooks, they need to be able to test it. And then the platform support, like I said before, I think we only had Ubuntu was the original one. So we had to add quite a few more platforms. If you look at it now, I think we've got 6 or 7 platforms in there now. I've kind of lost count. I just added a whole bunch, tested what I could. Some platforms like AIX, I'll never have access to the testing stuff. So some of it you have to put in there and just hope it works. Same goes for Windows. I assume it works. I haven't met a Windows customer that uses us yet or the cookbook. If you do or you're thinking about it, please talk to us. I want to know if it works. The ongoing requirements, because as I mentioned back earlier, Chef is a moving target. So as you heard from the keynote, Chef 13 totally coming. It is happening. One of the things with 13 is there's some newer requirements in terms of how you rate resources, et cetera. 14 is probably going to rock everyone's world when that comes out, but 13 is already here to stay. We made our cookbook 12 compatible by default, and then we also just did some cursory checking on 13 to make sure it works. But it's definitely going to be some ongoing stuff. Like the cool thing is there's a lot of public information. Like there's the discourse thing for Chef, where you can go on there to listen to the announcements and subscribe to them, like their news feeds and everything, to find out what's going on in the Chef community. And like I was mentioning before, the cookbook quality metrics are a moving target too. There's actually a repo that I will link you to where the process of choosing, like by sort of order of the community, what the community decides are good quality metrics that tell us it's a healthy cookbook. One of them in particular is how many contributors are there in a cookbook. There needs to be a minimum of 3 for them to declare it healthy. Because that's also a metric for me personally. If I see a project out there and only one person is maintaining it kind of here and there, to me that's not a sign of a healthy open source project, because if you talk about the bus factor being all grim and stuff like that, what if they go away and everything, now there's no one to maintain that cookbook? Or worse, what if there's a critical fix you need to get in and everything, and they're the only one there and they're on vacation for a month? So having multiple contributors helps so much a project. So even if you have a sort of public corporate project, see if you can get more people on yours to help with that particular metric. I think we easily qualify for that one, but like making sure you keep up to date on this is a huge deal. So as we alluded to before, what kind of cookbooks are out there now? There's actually quite a few. But the way you actually go find partner cookbooks is if you go to the supermarket right now, on the big giant search bar at the far right, there's an advanced options thing. It's a little hidden. If you click on that, this will drop down and you'll see a little checkbox for partner. If you check that off and then hit the go button, you'll see a whole bunch of them in the list. Here's ours and what it looks like. And what denotes it is a little badge that's next to the supported platforms. Also, when you pull up the actual page for any of the cookbooks that are partner cookbooks, off to the right, you'll see the little tiny badge. I kind of want them to make this bigger, but this is just them working with the design that's there now. But we'll see, like, as the program evolves, like if Chef decides to make this a bigger and bigger deal. But so far, like, we've been in it, and it's been pretty awesome. Like, it is, at least from the business side, it was no sweat. And honestly, from us on the technical side, it wasn't that bad. I mean, to be honest, like, we were already following some of the the cookbook best practices because, like I said, I've been around the Chef community for a while. I remember like my first summit, and I thought I had a decent Chef setup, and then Jamie Windsor was there to unveil Berkshelf. Like, this is how far back that goes. And then they sat me down to show me like how wrong my setup totally was. And I think I've rewritten my Chef setup like 4 times now. So it's an ongoing thing. Like, you really, like, you live and learn. And when you come to things like ChefConf or you go to the community summits, you learn a whole lot more about what can make your setup better, what can make your company work better. And like allowing for the business side folks to be able to contribute. Like, he's contributed to a lot of our cookbooks internally, and to me, I see that as like a huge sort of DevOpsy win-win if I can pull in people outside of my typical team to come in and either help us with something, ship something, but I don't want him to ever be afraid to ship something. I mean, he could be, but then I'll be there to hold his hand if he wants to. But
thank you for that.
Yeah, he likes making me sweat and also not paging me at 3 in the morning. So
yeah, bottom line is though is that in general, the program is really straightforward. From the business side, the costs are small, but it has a big win, right? I mean, plain and simple, if you commit to the program, you're saying we're going to keep the quality high, we're going to maintain these cookbooks, right? Advance one more there. So it's pretty straightforward from the business side. There are, of course, the legal agreements. There's also the open source licensing when you have to consider. But in general, I think it's a low-cost investment. And then from the development side?
Yeah, from the development side, migrating your cookbook is probably easier. I mean, it was honestly, like I said, fairly easy for us because we're already sort of following those best practices. And a lot of that I've generally gleaned from either Chef folks themselves, so definitely get in touch with a lot of them. And everyone sort of has opinions about how those cookbooks should roll. But migrating should be a fairly easy process. And if you ever get stuck, the cool thing is you can get help. And this is where I'm going to tell you to utilize the Chef Cookbook Partner resources. So the cool thing is when you enter this program too, you get sort of JJ as a point of contact. But there are other Chef people who will come in and help you, like guide you into either documentation you need to know about, or like they can help you do some code reviews to help bring your cookbook up to their standard. So if you're really, really afraid of like what that might look like, or if you're not sure if you can even follow those standards correctly, by all means, ask Chef for help. They will help you because they really want to get more of those cookbooks up there. I think still at this point we're the only DNS company up there.
There's one other there. So Infoblox actually has one up
cool.
there, but yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we were the first one though, right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
hey, first to market. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much our presentation. Thank you so much for your time.
Yep.
So
before we go, first of all, does anybody have any questions about the program or about our experience in it? I want to give you a chance if you have any. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the mic to you really quick.
Oh yeah, there you go.
1 second.
Otherwise I'll repeat the question, but yeah, it's good.
Is it required that the cookbook is hosted on GitHub, or does it just need to be publicly available?
No,
It just needs to be publicly available in some way. Because when one of the things that Food Critic will fail you on now is if you don't have a source URL in your metadata, it will fail too.
And okay, and that's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Git repo either. It just has to be like a.
Yeah, it just has to be public somewhere. It could be on Bitbucket or GitLab or anything like that. Like if you have a private GitLab instance or something that's like hosted by you but public or whatever.
I mean, you could even make the source just available in a downloadable fashion. Unfortunately, then you lose the benefits of a community-developed cookbook. And getting back to the contributor aspect, if you're aiming for 3 contributors minimum, you want to make it really easy for contributors to get in there and add to the cookbook and make it better over time.
Yeah, GitHub, GitLab, all those have really good avenues for people to contribute.
I'm going to pop up these resources
Yeah.
while we're there. Any other questions before we finish up here? Yes, sir.
So what criteria do you use when you're going to publish an internally developed cookbook?
So what criteria do you use if we're going to publish an internally developed cookbook?
Or you're not publishing any internally developed cookbooks?
I mean, right now we typically only publish cookbooks that are usually supporting open source projects as well, or that in some way are useful to a broader open source community. Our internal cookbooks, we also do maintain them inside of GitHub, but we just keep them in private repos, and then we run our own chef server to get that stuff.
I mean, these days the internal cookbooks are wrapper cookbooks basically now. So we try to wrap, like we consume a lot of the supermarket actually. Kind of to sometimes detrimental thing. Like I've contributed a lot of PRs to other open source cookbooks to try to get them to like either better patterns or, hey, this bug bit me and all that stuff, and here's like my test case basically to show that it doesn't work.
Yep.
So like for internal ones, I don't think we really have anything candidate-wise that would just go up there.
We do still follow, so they do still follow the same sort of campsite techniques in order to clean up cookbooks, and also the same Food Critic and linting they do for those cookbooks on all the internal cookbooks as well. The older ones have to get moved up, so what we do is we keep a list of requirements for how to campsite a cookbook to bring it up to date, and that actually helps out really well. And any of the operators can do that, and frankly the documentation internally is good enough, so even I could probably pull it off if I really wanted to.
Yeah. I think I blogged about this somewhat recently, actually. So if you look at the DNSimple blog, there's a post I made about talking about campsiting and stuff like that. So we actually have like an actual procedure list internally of like, add this file, remove this. If this is here, take this out. Shift this to here. Like it's a living document. It gets updated I want to say like every couple of months or less. I mean, you can try to pull it up if you want, but.
Well, actually, I was gonna. Since we have 5 minutes left, I was gonna do one other thing real quick. Oh, you got all kinds of good stuff up here, don't you?
Yeah. I'll do
There
that.
we go.
There we go.
All right, so real quick, I just want to.
So I'll have to switch to mirroring mode here for you.
Yeah, please do.
I forgot what the shortcut is for that, but.
We have 5 minutes. I'll be happy to answer any other questions before we go, but I wanted real quick just actually run the cookbook. We have a little demo if you want to see how our cookbook runs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we mirrored?
Yep.
Great.
Mirrored, so see if we can get to the terminal.
All right, and so we wrote this thing that we can use to just quickly show this. So we're going to run the demo with room 201, so that you all know that it's for you. The record does not exist right now, so it's going to go through and it's going to create an instance up at DigitalOcean, and it's going to then provision a little Apache server on it, and at the same time it's going to actually add a DNS record into our system. So the way our cookbook works is it actually calls out to our API to do record provisioning in this particular case. So the first thing that we have to do here while it's going, though, is we have to get connected to DO. So we'll see if the network loves us enough to give us a decent SSH connection.
Yeah. I'll pull up the code in VI afterwards just to appease.
Yeah, we'll see.
That was a fun call out.
So while he's doing that, we can take a real quick look at the actual code there.
Okay, so let's see here. So Here's the directory itself. Going to
Cookbooks,
Cookbooks. Here's the demo. Then see recipes. Just one. Can I pull this up? Yeah. Hey, sexy VI.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. So that's. So there you go. So the very top of it up here. This is our custom resource that we export in our cookbook now. So our cookbook got entirely rewritten to be a Chef 12 and 13 compatible one. If you want to see a really interesting way to write an API-driven cookbook, because we're wrapping an API and Chef is talking to that API, which is not the norm when you're writing resources. So don't take our cookbook design as gospel. I am talking with Chef about how that pattern can be better, because I know I'm not the only one who's done it. I just, that's just where it is. But if you look at the internal code of the cookbook, pretty fun. But this is all we're really doing to create the A record on the other side, that once it goes up there, it gives you a subdomain at DNSimple.sexy based on the data we were actually using, environment variables and test kitchen under the covers to actually go and create this DigitalOcean instance with the demo, and then we spit out a Apache server with a welcome template and everything, and we even capitalize the folks' names and all that stuff. So
Flip back over. Let's see if it's run yet.
Yeah, let's check it out. Oh yeah.
Oh, it's
up
good.
there.
Okay, so if y'all want to pull up on your phone or on your computer, room201.dnsimple.sexy.
Yeah, pull out your phone,
you
check it
will
out.
see the site. It's up and running. There we go. So that's an example. The cookbook itself is, and again, you can see all of this on the supermarket. The idea really is for each of you to take cookbooks that you think are beneficial to the community as a whole and get them out there and get them blessed by Chef, so that we can trust them, so that all of us can trust each other's cookbooks and get stuff shipping faster. That's what it really comes down to. And that's pretty much the end of our presentation. Thank you. If y'all have any other questions, we can answer after. He has to run because he has another talk that's starting here in just a second. In the customer success.
Yeah, I'm gonna be fashionably late to another talk. So if you want, just come find us at our booth next door over here. All of us will be there. I'll be running around, decided to look for a fox, so I got the fox tail on. So not freaking out. We were seeing a tail coming out of me there. And I also run around with the chef jacket, mostly out of irony, just because it's a chef conference. Plus, it convinces everyone in the hotel that I'm here to cook, which is really fun.
Yes.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah, let's hear it for Anthony and Aaron.
Thank you.